Hi, so my name is Danielle Sarfati. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to use my students in this fake trial, so I'm going to just do it myself and sometimes play the role of the student, sometimes play the role of the teacher, and I'll let you know when I'm changing characters. So let's get to it. Okay, so I would start off the class by, this is my fake board for the day, with the learning goal, and I would tell the class that today what we're focusing on is the tools necessary to best understand and answer comprehension questions and comprehension passages. I would also put an agenda on the board so that people know exactly the order of what's happening in class today. I think it's a great tool and a great resource for students to know exactly the transition of what's going to happen from the beginning of class until the end of class. They can look at it as much as they want because it's on the board, and if they maybe finish something early, they know what to work on next or what to expect. So I would start off by reading the learning goal as well as going over the agenda. Then I would give out a handout. The handout would have various information from the booklet that you had supplied me with, one of the things being the first passage. The first passage, I would ask if there was any volunteers to read, and hopefully a student would raise their hand, and if not, I would pick someone. And then the first person, I'd ask them to read the first paragraph. So now I'll be the student volunteering, and we'll read the first part. In one study, 83% of 140 male and female executives in a variety of businesses reports have a mentor when they were younger. Generally, they view the mentor-protege relationship as an important aspect of the initial phase of their careers. Mentors are given credit for teaching proteges the key elements of the job and for providing a key relationship in the young adult's shift from dependence on parents to complete independence. After that was read, I would stop the student and I would ask another student, can you briefly summarize the main idea of that paragraph? I'd give them a few minutes to think about it, maybe a minute at most, and then I would ask. Hopefully we get a bunch of different generally the same ideas actually. So maybe someone would raise their hand and say, this paragraph is talking about the relationship between mentors and proteges and how it's very popular for executives to have had a mentor throughout their growing experience from dependence to independence. Anything along those lines would be right. Maybe we'd have a little brief discussion. Do any of you have mentors? Do you see anyone who you see as having an influence on you? So a teacher, a parent, maybe you have a part-time job, in which case is there somebody that you look up to that you go to answer questions, stuff like that, just to get the conversation going and to really understand the point of the paragraph. This would take no more than 2 minutes, just a quick, brief little outline. Then I would ask another volunteer to read the second paragraph. So, me, miss, I want to be the volunteer, so I'd pick you, and then we'd read the second part. Within organizations, proteges are more likely to be promoted, get larger raises, and have more opportunities within a company, law firm, or other group than are young workers who have no mentor. But it is difficult to know whether these advantages arise from the mentoring process itself, since those who are selected as proteges are usually the most strongly motivated or best skilled among the younger workers. Interesting. So then I would stop the reader again. Thank you so much for reading, and ask another student to summarize that in one sentence. Hopefully, they would say that the problem here is that we don't know if those who have the mentor-protege relationship is in fact making executives and different workers more successful, or if it's those who are already motivated within themselves, strongly motivated, end up being the hardest workers because it's who they are and they end up getting a mentor. So we see this this issue here, this clash. Hopefully someone brings that up. If someone doesn't, I'd kind of try to yank it out of them. I would ask them kind of leading questions like, so why do you think that proteges are more likely to be promoted than people who don't have mentors? Hopefully they'll say because they have a mentor, but then you'll say, but what kind of people, my next leading question would be, but what kind of people are the people who have mentors? And they can scan the text and look for that answer. Now that we have a really thorough understanding of both paragraphs, I'm going to read the question. So I'm going to say, according to the passage, one way in which mentors help proteges is by 1. Giving them credit for excellent work, 2. Encouraging them to aim for executive positions, 3. Teaching them important aspects of the job, or 4. Arranging for them to receive a large pay. I'll give them a minute to let that sink in. But before we answer the question, I'm going to say, what are we looking for? So we need to understand what the purpose of this right now is. We have a passage, we have questions, but what do we need? 2 things. 1, we need to be able to identify what we're looking for, and 2, identify how to find it. So right now, we're only going to focus for the first part of our lesson on what we're looking for. So if we go back to this paragraph, we see that the question itself is asking about a detail in the passage. So what's one way that a mentor helps proteges? The correct answer, I don't want to give it away, so I would ask the students, what do you guys think? Hopefully, someone would say is teaching them important aspects of the job. Why? Because that's in the paragraph. So in the first paragraph, we see that it says mentors are given credit for teaching proteges the key elements of the job. Then it brings us to an interesting point. So I would ask, what is a detail and how do we find it? Can anyone think of an example of a detail? I'd give them a chance to maybe raise their hand. Tell me a detail about yourself. Hopefully a student will raise their hand and say, my name's Nancy and I love to cook. Cool, that's a detail about yourself. Excellent. Someone else want to try? My sister's name is Emily, and she is really good at basketball. Awesome. Okay, so then we have to really try to get to the bottom of what we're looking for, if we're looking for a detail or if we're looking for a fact. So now, what's the difference? Why do we need them? Why are we looking for them? I would make sure to clearly outline that facts and details on tests like this test our ability to answer questions about information that is stated directly in the passage. So we're not looking for something that isn't there. Instead, we're actually looking for an answer that's directly taken from the passage. So your answer is in there somewhere. You just need to find it. So what's the difference between a fact and a detail? A fact, I would tell them, you guys gave me great examples, but now let's try to articulate it. Can anybody give me an idea? You guys gave me great examples of details, sorry. So now that you gave me details about yourself, try to think of a fact about yourself. I'll start. My birthday is July 21st. That's a fact. Now I would ask the students, why do you think that's a fact? What makes it a fact? Hopefully someone will raise their hand and say, because it's the truth. Because it's something that is really a part of you. It's true to you. You were born on that date. Maybe someone else would say, it really happened. It's a real event. Like, you really were born July 21st. Awesome. Great answer. Then I would ask, does anyone else have any examples? Maybe someone would raise their hand and say, my dog's name is Skip. Great. Awesome. Okay. So now, another question, class. Can a fact be a supporting detail? So now we know what a fact is, and we have an idea of a detail, but we haven't quite explained what a detail is yet. So can someone try to maybe articulate what a detail is? So I'd give everyone a minute because it is kind of a difficult question. And then I would say that sometimes a fact also works as a detail. So we don't need to separate them. Sometimes they work together. I would say that a detail is a specific bit of information. So it could be a statistic, it could be a reason, it could be a description, it could be an illustration. It comes in many different forms. And the examples you've given me within the context could also be a supporting detail. So can someone think of a supporting detail example? I'd give them a minute to think. Hopefully someone would raise their hand. Maybe they would say, I'm happy because my mom bought me a dog. So because my mom bought me a dog is the supporting detail of why I'm happy. It's explaining, it's giving me a little bit more information. It's illustrating an idea. So now that we have that, I go back to my first question. What is the difference between a fact and a detail? And can a fact also be a supporting detail? Hopefully by then, a student raises their hand and says yes. Why? Because it depends on its context. Awesome. Then, both facts and details, what do? What's the purpose? Why are they in there? Why are they in our text? They're to make our main ideas stronger and more convincing, because the more details you have and the more facts you have, the more believable it is, and also the more the reader can really absorb from the context. I would ask a student to give an example. So, students, can you tell me about one thing that you did this weekend and give as many details as you can? So, yes, what detail would you like to give? So hopefully someone would raise their hand and say, this weekend I went to the movies and I also went for dinner with my parents, and then on Sunday I slept in and then did my homework. I'd be like, excellent. Now what if I just said, this weekend I slept in? Which story that I went to the movie, I had dinner with my parents, I did my homework, and I slept in, or I just slept in. Which part do you know more about? Obviously the one with more details and more facts. So that's how I would try to illustrate it. I would give them a minute within this to kind of talk to the person beside them and tell each other about a different fact and like a different event that happened to them, and give details and facts. Then we go back to, so why are they used? They test our ability to answer questions about information that's stated directly in the passage, which I've already mentioned, but I would just really try to reiterate it so they know where we're at. Then the format. So these kind of questions, they're going to ask us a bunch of different things. They're going to ask us what, which, who, where, when, how, different forms of asking the same type of question. Does anyone have any examples of these kind of questions? Hopefully just someone will raise their hand and say, what is your favorite color? Or why is the sky blue? These are good. Show me that the kids, that the students are really on point. They're paying attention. They know what we're talking about, and they're following. I would also try to call on students maybe who haven't spoken yet, ask them how they're doing, or walk around, and maybe if they're don't feel comfortable speaking out loud in front of the class, I'd walk around and go ask them, like, oh, can you name me a question? Great. Excellent. You're on the right path. But then I would go back to our main problem. So now that we know what we're looking for, so we're looking for a passage. To answer this question, we need to look at the passage. Looking at the passage, we're looking for details and we're looking for facts. But now we know what we're looking for. How do we find out how to find it? Then I would introduce we're on step 4, the 3 S's. I would say that there's 3 tools we can use to really get to the bottom of this when we're on a test, and they all start with S's. Skimming, scanning, and scrolling. I would briefly explain them. So I would say, does anyone have any ideas? Ask them what they think when they've used them. Skimming, I would explain, is you read it quickly, you look for key sentences, and it gives you an idea, but you don't really read every word. Then I would say scanning is when you're trying to find specific information. So when you read the question, you know already what you're kind of looking for, and when you're scanning, you're looking for those key words and that specific information that's going to help you answer the question. So the test will tell you what you're looking for in the question. You just need to know how to identify that, and then you have to look for it. And then scrolling is usually on a computer, and it's using the scroll bar, and again, you're looking at the overall meaning. So when we're doing this, there are certain expressions that will help us really see the relationship between questions and answers. So I would show them on the back of the page, the handout, the transitions and the functions sheet. I would tell them to look at it, read it over themselves, and then turn to a partner and try to ask a question. So for example, if I wanted to use the function illustrate, but I don't want to tell them that, I would say, here is, okay, no, for a different one, because already illustrate is a little simple. Let's say it was give reasons. So I would say, give reasons for why blue is Lewis's favorite color. it's a made-up question, there's no passage, but the other person is going to pretend like they had read a passage, and they're going to try to answer it. So they're going to say, one reason why Lewis's favorite color blue is because it reminds him of the ocean. So we're using here the transition, one reason, and give reasons to show the relation between when a question asks you a function, how to find those transition words to help you connect to the idea. Okay, my 50 minutes are over. There's more to the lesson I would love to share, but that's all for now. Thank you so much.